What's up, you guys? Coming back at y'all with another Commander deck video. This was yet again voted on by my patrons. These are all from Dominaria, so they're a little bit newer than what I'm usually going to do. And then after I'm done doing most of the Dominaria Commander decks that I'm doing, I will then go back to just doing random deck techs. Stuff that's a little bit more interesting, unexpected. We're going to be going with Aryel, Knight of Windgrace. This was yet again another tiebreaker. I had to choose which one, so I went with her. Definitely a more interesting deck for me, just because we don't really have Knight Tribal. You have some Knight Tribal commander options in the past, but they either didn't really synergize with other Knights, or they just weren't that good. With Aryel, you get both colors, white and black. You see a ton of Knights in these colors, so it works out perfectly. She is a 4/4 legendary human Knight with Vigilance, 2 activated abilities. The first one is 3 mana tapper. Create a 2/2 white Knight creature token with Vigilance. Her second ability is 1 black, tap X untapped Knights you control to destroy target creature with power X or less. Now that second ability is obviously going to be the strength of this deck. I mean, just creating 1 2/2 white Knight isn't really that big of a deal. I guess you could add it to the numbers that you're going to be tapping in order to destroy a target creature, so it has some usefulness, but it's not going to be as strong as that second ability, because removal is always a good thing. And in white and black, you have a ton of removal already. Adding that onto whatever else you're doing is even better. And the cool thing here is that she does have Vigilance, so she can attack and then you can tap her to destroy a creature. You do have to tap your other Knights in order to do this, so if they have Vigilance, it's going to work out that way. That's just an interaction I think is noteworthy. But yeah, this is basically going to be Knight Tribal, nothing too complicated, but we're going to try to go through this as quickly as we can. If you don't know by now, I'm going to be condensing my Commander deck videos so I don't go over the same kind of cards like Soul Ring, Lightning Greaves. We all know those cards, or at least almost all of us know those cards. I would rather save time talking about cards that are important for the deck, that are really going to be important if you want to know the strategy. And of course, this is Knights, so you're going to be seeing the typical dynamic of the Black Knight and the White Knight, and you see this in Dominaria as well, where we have Knight of Grace and Knight of Malice. These are pretty much the same exact creature, just one's white, one's black, and they're kind of the opposite in that regard. But you also have Knight of Glory and Knight of Infamy. This is from M13, I believe. They kind of do the same exact thing, but they work with Exalted. Those are definitely cool. We have a ton of Knights that are going to be similar to that. They're just good keywords in combat, but there are definitely ones that you need for a utility reason, because combat, even though that's going to be how you win the game, you need something that's going to work out well in different situations outside of combat. We have things like Knight of the White Orchid, pretty much a land tax on an ETB. If an opponent controls more lands than you, you get a plains and you get to put on the battlefield. It's not tapped, and it's any plains, so it could be a Godless Shrine. Land ramp in these colors where we don't really have any of it is going to work out pretty well. Knights of the Black Rose is actually really cool. This was from Conspiracy 2. Going to make it to where you're the Monarch, which is going to give you some extra card draw, so that's really nice. And it's also going to drain some life from your opponents whenever they become the Monarch. We do have Thalia's Lancer, so if we have another good legendary card in our deck that we really want to get to, this also includes Planeswalkers, by the way, so keep that in mind. We have 2 of them in the deck. And if you want to see the entire deck list, I forgot to mention this earlier, it will be in the description below. The link to it will be to my tapped out. Go check it out. And we also have Vona, Butcher of Magan for removal. Really underrated creature. Vigilance and lifelink. You swing with her first, gain some life, and then you pay 7, which isn't as bad when you already gain 4 life. Destroying a non-land permanent. Vindicate on an activated ability. Pretty cool. You can only do it during your turn, but still decent. And then after that, we pretty much just focus on Knight Tribal, which, believe it or not, there are some pretty decent ones. You could go with the typical Metallic Mimic if you want to buff up your team, give them extra +1/+1 counters. Or you could play the Haakon Stromgald Scourge. This guy was terrible as a commander. Don't like him. He doesn't really work that well. You need so much to really make him work. But as one of the 99, he's a little bit easier to work with, because all you really need to do is make sure that you can discard a card, have more than your maximum hand size, and then he's in the graveyard. Once you do have him in play, he's going to make it to where you can just recast your Knights from your graveyard. So a lot of good value there if you are able to get him out. Sometimes he's just going to be dead in your hand, but if you do have him, he's nothing but good for this deck. Knight Exemplar. Other Knight creatures are going to get +1/+1 and indestructible that we control. In a combat-based deck, that's really awesome. We also have a card that I mentioned in my underrated cards from Dominaria. Josu Vess Lich Knight. Doesn't necessarily do anything special, but just gets you a ton of those zombie Knights if you are able to kick him. So you're going to get 8 of them, which is perfect for a deck where we want numbers so that we can then tap Aryel to get some removal going. Kinsbale Cavalier. Knight creatures we control have double strike. Just going to add to the strength of this deck in combat. that. But even outside of that, we do have some good synergies and artifacts and enchantments. A lot of those are going to support the deck pretty well. Konda's banner is a great equipment. Creatures, pretty much every single one of them except for Metallic Mimic, are going to get +1/+1 because they share a color with Aryel. Hopefully that's the one that we equip it to. There are some legendary knights in the deck that are going to work out well with that too, but she's going to be the primary target. Creatures that share a creature type with her are going to get +1/+1 as well. So a cool little anthem equipment here, and when you have tokens, it's just so much better. We have the Herald's Horn, going to make your deck a little bit quicker. Cost reduction is also really sweet. And then we have the usual Door of Destinies, Coat of Arms. These see play in just about every single tribal deck, especially ones that are combat based. It doesn't hurt to have a Vanquisher's Banner for some extra card draw. But when we go on to enchantments, I really don't think enough people use this card, but Cover of Darkness in any deck where you depend on combat to win is brilliant. All of your knights are going to have fear to where they can't be blocked except by artifact creatures or black creatures. So very few things are going to be able to stop them. In a deck where we don't have flying, where we don't have a lot of evasiveness, this is a perfect card. It's only 2 mana, really efficient. But we also have Radiant Destiny, which is another anthem. But if you have the City's Blessing, all of your creatures are also going to get Vigilance. So your knights are going to be really good in combat. But that's about it though. The rest of the deck, aside from these 2 planeswalkers we're going to talk about, is going to be filler stuff, which is usually in black-white going to be good removal. You know, your Swords to Plowshares, Anguished Unmaking. I've gone over those cards a million times. But the 2 planeswalkers here, Gideon, Ally of Zendikar, and Sorin Grim Nemesis, are really cool because they actually get us some night creatures. Gideon is going to get us one of them on a 0. He's not my favorite planeswalker in Commander, but the fact that he also is going to give us numbers and knights for Aryel really makes him better for this type of deck. His plus is okay if you need some extra creature power, you got it. And being able to use his ult multiple times in a game is just going to make your team even bigger. And we have the Sorin Grim Nemesis, which isn't really bad if you use him for his plus or his -X, but really the idea of getting to ult him and then getting that many night creatures equal to the highest life total is just ridiculous. That's just a ton of life you can gain. Really sweet cards. But anyway guys, that's just going to do it for this deck. Hope you enjoyed it. A little bit more condensed than what I usually do. So far I really like this deck. It's not overcomplicated. It's really not strong when you talk about tribal synergies, but what you get, it really plays to the strength of both creature-based decks and removal, which in black-white you can do that pretty well, and with tokens especially, but having removal on a creature's activated ability is really sweet and very underrated. As always, you guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.